click here so you're not mute. All right.
All right.
We're so grateful that you're allowing us to interview you and have this little chat with you. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, sure. Of course. I have high respect for Shane Snipes, which I think is the program you're associated with, and so happy to help him out in any way I can, and then obviously you guys.
Thank you so much. Definitely.
Are you going to give the context? Like, give me context to what you guys are doing?
Sure. We're taking one of the modules that we are working on right now is on ecosystems and how they help and propel businesses to thrive, and how they have helped some people achieve the goals that they have for their own individual companies and entrepreneurial goals.
Okay.
So the base is the ecosystem, and that's one of the amazing things. Is I was going over your LinkedIn page real quick, and I saw that you're an amazing person to have as a mentor, just based on all the different things you've done. One of the things that actually struck both of us is the fact that you said at the end, the bottom, that all of this, you had this tremendous help from the people around you, and that you're very grateful for that. So I feel that you are perfect for us to be asking you about your ecosystem and how you got to where you're at based on that.
For sure. Look, community is very important to me. So you can build something really big and successful and all that good stuff, but that's not the stuff that motivates me. So it seems like you've got a general sense of me, and happy to share whatever I can to help what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Thank you. Well, let's start with a simple question. How do you personally define success?
Yeah. I think it becomes very fundamental. I think you first have to understand who you are and how I think everyone is made in a certain way for a certain purpose. And so you've got to reconcile with that first, and before you can define what your purpose is. So I define I think I was put here on this earth for a reason. I think I was made in a certain way. So after I've assessed that, then I start to synthesize what my purpose is. Once I've defined my purpose, then success is chasing after my purpose. So for me, I think I was given the gift of leadership. I think I was given the gift of sort of organization and sort of building from the ground up, which is the entrepreneurial thing. But I love that. Like, I was on a podcast the other day, and I explained to someone in this way that I don't want to ever take a vehicle that is already going 40 miles an hour and taking it to 50. I want to take something, a broken down vehicle, get it fixed up, operational again, and get it from 0 to 20. And then someone else can take it over for me. And so entrepreneurship is certainly something that I was sort of born to do. And then the third is sort of the facilitative connecting component, right? Which is, in a room, are you the person that's able to get other people engaged and not just be, sort of communicating, but facilitating conversation? So this is a very complex answer of saying, what are you good at? What are you doing here on this earth? Have you defined that purpose? So for me, my purpose is to bring a diverse group of people together to spark collaboration for stronger communities. And that all flows from what I'm good at, right? And so, so for me, success is making sure that I don't try to segment my life and say, this is for this is for that, but is every moment of my day leading towards the overall purpose. And so for me, success is living out a purpose-driven life.
Okay. All right. So you said it's. I wanted to ask, what do you personally view as failure now?
Okay. What do I personally view as failure? Like an example of failure, or how do I define the word failure? What are you getting at there?
How do you, maybe business-wise, what would you view as failure? No?
Yeah. I think failure is something that's been defined by like marketplaces, right? So I think there's certain assumptions around what failure looks like. And so I think there's two things that, I think there's two things that we have to reconcile with. Like, number one is if we agree with whatever the marketplace says failure is, like, we have two things to do with that. Like, or failure, we have two things to do with failure. Like, one, we can either agree with what the marketplace says it is, and then figure out how to bounce back from it, or to deal with that and turn it into some sort of learning and insight. Or we can define our own what failure is, right?
Right.
So and so in the, I was the CEO of a publicly traded company. I used to be an attorney. And in both those cases, I was pushed out of both of those sort of big jobs, right? So I was a big attorney, and the downturn happened. I was the CEO of a publicly traded company. Eventually, the board came to me and said, hey, we're going a different way with this. So I guess the world would define that as failure. But for me, it was just an inflection point to lead to something else. And so I believe that purpose often comes out of pain. So how do I define failure in a business context? I'm sorry, I'm giving you sort of a nebulous answer, but
no, it's literally somehow it's exactly the way that I see it in my head. Like, failure can be something to someone else, but to me, the fact that I tried 10 times and then on the 11th times I got it, failure could have been the 8th time was, you're a failure, the 9th time. But to me, it's like, oh no, this is just part of the process. This is part of the success. This is not a failure. Like, you define it your way. And for me, like, if I tried and I know that I did my best and I put all my all and all my smarts and all my experience into something and I'm working on it, that's definitely not a failure. Even if I don't finalize the goal,
I like that, but again, I would say, like, it's important for me to draw two distinctions of failure. Like, there's failure as how you define it, and there's failure how the world defines it. And so there is a failure in my definition that would say it's a bad thing, right? And so failure would be, coming back to the first question, of doing things repeatedly that are not what you're supposed to be doing, or not in line with your mission, within your purpose, right? Like, that is failure that has an end, versus these other types of failures, right, which are a stepping stone to something else. So because I don't want to be too trite here, because we can sort of say the same old thing everyone else says, but I think it's more nuanced than that, right? Like, I think, failing and getting back up is good, but I'd argue it's not good if it's not, like, central to, like, what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So.
Okay, definitely. I totally understand and agree with you. You said that that you used to be an attorney, so you used to practice law, right?
Yeah, I'm still licensed, yeah.
Intellectual property.
No. So I was a corporate attorney. So I contracts and helping businesses with their what's called corporate governance and things like that. Did a little bit of mergers and acquisitions. So that was some of my early years. I was working for a startup and doing mergers and acquisitions, contract drafting, making sure that the decisions were in line with what the corporate documents said we could operate like.
Okay, and now that transitioning that experience that you had in corporate into an entrepreneurial landscape for a startup company, my question is, someone that's starting a new company, do you think that they would need to have an attorney on retainer, or just learn as much about the business law of the business that you're trying to go into, and then just get advice and then get an attorney whenever you actually need it for contracts?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. It's all this life is about is like all sort of business is about like risk and reward, right? And just assessing, like balancing those two. So it's a nuanced answer. The predicate question is, what type of company is it, right? Like, is there a lot at risk? And so let's just assume it's like most companies where you're doing something pretty small. You're not exposing yourself to a lot of risk. You don't have a lot of external people that have invested in your company. Then my answer to you is no, Like my answer is no, don't engage an attorney, figure it out yourself. Because the risk is not high enough for the cost of it. So, you know, most of these attorneys are like, some of them have good insights, but, you know, it's not as if they've got the answer off the top of the head. And so a lot of times you're paying an attorney, like a lot of there's consultants, for them to help you solve a problem along the way, right? It's not just, hey, you've got the book of answers, right? Like you're hiring someone who's equipped to figure out the answers versus someone that has the answers.
Right.
For the stuff early on with the company, like you can figure it out. Just do the research, you know, like it's not that complicated, you know, and often sometimes the attorneys forget and they're doing the same thing that you're doing, which is Google searching the rule of that local jurisdiction or something like that. So the answer is no. You know, you don't need an attorney until there's a significant risk profile of what you're doing. So that involves, you know, raising money. That involves, you know, conflict with employees. It involves if there is a complex structure to your partnership. So like there is some validity to it. Don't get me wrong, but I would say defer on the side of, like, you own the process, you need to dictate and learn yourself, because what you don't want to have happen is be like uninformed when you do hire that attorney, and then they are both charging you a lot of money and you're not aware if they're doing good work or not for you. And so you being informed is just like everything else, is like critical to you being successful with managing outside vendors. It's something that all of us struggle with consistently, even at larger sizes of managing these outside vendors. So like be equipped, be informed so you can actually manage them.
For the specifics of the business that you're running,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the resources you used in your ecosystem to help you start up your business. And what do you feel was the most important one to you?
That's a broad question. Resources. Do you want to lead me? Do you want to lead me a little bit there?
Like, who did, you know, what helped? Like,
you asked me who helped.
Yeah, like, yeah, who did you specifically go to help you start up your business?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw it back at you. I know this is, you're interviewing me, but like, who do you think? I mean, you've brought up one, right? You brought up an attorney, but like, who are the other people that come to mind?
Well, to start up my business, my friends are helping me, you know, friends, family, like people close to me. Yeah. Because those are the people I trust to have the input on. So who did you use?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, so you like my biggest recommendation to people is to test, right? Mm-hmm. There's a phrase called use cases, right? Like you can't get a use case unless you've tested. Right. And the most important like stakeholder, like I'm very visual when it comes to like clusters and the stakeholders required in order to create a successful marketplace, right? And then services and products within that marketplace where people feel it's valuable enough. And so like this sort of master mapping thing is something you want to really do, right? You want to get on that whiteboard and start master mapping like what the marketplace is and who the players are, right? And so the most important player is the customer, right? And so like that's what you need. Like what do you need first is you need to understand that there's actually a problem that needs to be solved. You got to have that minimal viable product that you can provide to people such that they want to try to test it. But the most important part is that friends and families that won't invest in your business, but that will invest in your product such that they will use it and try it. And then like gaining those insights, being able to, take that information and then say, okay, this information means something to those people, but like, what does it mean at scale, right? Like there are X amount of people that found it valuable, right? This validates the fact of how many people I think will find it valuable. Now, if I did this in a larger arena, what would that look like, right? And so like, this is your sort of testing and business modeling exercise. And so that is the most important part to begin with. The next is taking one of those customers and turning them into a partner, right? Like, how do you, like, one of the biggest things that you find in the venture capital world is you've got different types of investors. You have sort of just straight financial investors, and you have what they call strategic investors, right? And what a strategic investor means to me is it's just someone that is in the industry, right? And so for our company, the company I'm helping build now over at Bank Novo, our bank partner, who is someone providing the core service, what we're doing, is also an investor in our company. And so what you, ideally, the scenario is find that first consumer that's a friend and family, right? Then take either them or someone they know, help them become a partner, right? They are so obsessed with your product that they now want to be a part of what you're doing, right? All of a sudden, you've created this cluster of stakeholders, right? You've created a consumer, you've created a partner that can help you deliver the product, and now you need to think about the rest. The next sequencing would be really interesting is like, can you turn that partner into a financial investor, right? Like that is willing to put their money on the line just like you. And so, look, I think there's so many ways to go with your question, but finding friends and family that will test your product first is the most important part. All of these service providers, the traditional white collar service providers, like, I think it's kind of a lame answer. It's not like you need an accountant and you need an attorney and you need this, right? Like those are not the first things you need, right? What you need is a marketplace, and you got to figure out who the people in the marketplace are and how you build relationships with those people. And you would use the same mechanism that people do in fundraising. In fundraising, when you fundraise, initially it's your capital, right? Like how much money are you willing to put on the table? Then there's the friends and families round. How much money are your friends and family willing to put on the line? Then there's the angel investors round, which are like people you don't know, but they're still not as sophisticated. And then you go to the venture capital world. So think about building your business the same way. Understand who the stakeholders are, right? The most important stakeholders. Right. And then use that model of friends and family to large institutions. And how do you scale from a friends and family to buying your product in order to get an institution to buy your product?
It's interesting how you, there are focus groups that you can, say, hire to test your product and what have you, but using this model of using your friends and family to test your product as the original focus group. Doesn't that kind of conflict a little bit? Because, you know that you're going to get biased information sometimes from your friends and family. But then finding people that really believe in the product within that group, now that changes the whole dynamic. Because I was always hesitant to try to present an idea to friends and family because they'll say, "Oh, that's great, that's awesome, that sounds very good. Like, would you invest more?" So like there's that major difference as opposed to having focus.
Look, I get your point. I mean, that's where you'll use the judgment of what is like valid data points and what's not, and making sure you get like a representative data set. Right. And so that's that you'll decide that. And so, dude, everything is built around networks. And so you just gotta tell me which of the networks is most representative. If it's not your mom, it's not your mom, like if it's your buddy that's going to give you real, feedback, then it's still the same concept. And I'm totally with you, but that's just a function of your discretion. And as far as the focus groups thing goes, again, like I'm not a believer in sort of playbook driven or off the shelf solutions. Like the world does not work like that. So like if you got an idea, like I think you're way too early for a focus group, especially if it costs you X amount of money. Like we're talking about like hiring someone to run a focus group for you. Like whoa, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Like, let's get a couple data points before we start to notch up amount of investment versus, the potential return on that investment.
Okay. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurs, a lot of us have this, we want to make money, but we want to do things that have a purpose, that really creates value and change on something that we believe in and something that we're passionate about. I saw that you work with underserved youth groups. What was your goal, and why did you pick that project as sort of? Is it a passion of yours? Do you pick it because of that? Like, how did that go about?
Yeah. I mean, my community activism has kind of changed over time. I'm not as active in that subset of our community. I love building things in places that no one else wants to build them. And it wasn't as if I was particularly passionate about kids, although like I love kids and
Right.
I loved my time with those organizations. But what I really loved is it wasn't the status quo. Like, so essentially my first year of college, you're required to do community service. And everyone else went and did kind of like the status quo with like the elderly home or something like that. And it was sort of formed. And instead I saw this, this group home that no one else went to. And I didn't just go volunteer. I created a sports program, that would help drive learnings and education to these kids. And so it was just another form of entrepreneurship, right? It was just another form of like understanding a community, understanding the problem, saying, look, I want to bring a unique solution, and I don't want it just to be off the shelf. Like, I want to create something from scratch.
Right.
So that's how that all happened. And then, but the concept of that and using entrepreneurship as a tool to empower people is the exact same. So I spend most of my time in my community running events, and my goal is to get a diverse group of people together. So I do sort of meetup round tables. I host community meals every month, and then I host sports events that the purpose is not the sports, but it's to get their sports that a diverse group of people can play. And so with meals, everyone eats, right? Like with the meetup thing, it's not that everyone loves business, but it's that everyone wants to talk about different issues that are facing our society.
Right.
And so all of these things are just a tool to get people together so that they can, collaborate together, identify what they're passionate about, and then go build really cool things. I think the service with the youth group homes through Success Through Sports was a little bit different, but it's all in the same vein, which is my mission, which is diverse group of people, getting them together to spark ideas, and then really on top of that is entrepreneurship, which is okay. Now, you want to change your life. I believe that the best way to change your life is by owning your life. Ownership is not just a legal mentality. It's not just a legal concept. It is a mentality, and so entrepreneurship is the tool for that. And so everything that I do is getting people together such that they can think of their lives in a ownership mentality rather than a receiver mentality.
I am so going to quote you on that. Own your life. That's the basis of entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah. I'm also trying to get my community on board because I'm trying to start a beauty salon. And I wanted to know if you had any strategies for me, to get it started. Because I'm not going to be, the first in the neighborhood, but everybody has their go-to already. I'm trying to get the community, into my ideas.
Yeah.
Do you have any strategies?
Yeah, I mean, what I say is don't open a storefront tomorrow. Don't go sign a 5-year lease and open a storefront. And that's sort of the drastic comment. But then the build-up comment is, okay, what do people why do people? Two things. Why do people pick a stylist? And then two, what are the other what is the value you get out of going to a salon, right? And don't just tell me hey, I get my hair cut and colored and, because I look pretty, but what else are they doing? And I think, and I'm going to leave the question, so I'm not going to force you on it, but what I would do is I'd figure out, it's really about women getting to be honest with each other about their lives or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's what it is, I would create a group around the foundation of what the real value of the beauty experience is, and not focus as much on I want to cut your hair, but start to create that community. and community in person, and then develop a thesis around like what you're trying to do, and then start developing online community groups around that topic, which all feeds and is a funnel towards your customer base, right? Like, so you got to go deeper. You got to go a layer deeper to figure out like why you're really doing it and what the experience that people like. Why are people obsessed with the experience with you, right? Like, and that's the same question we're asking at the bank, the digital bank that I'm running. Like, are people obsessed about our product? And if they're not, we're not doing the right job. And then we got to tap into why people are obsessed with our product, right? And then we need to start creating groups where we talk about the underlying obsession, which is normally a response to, I hate the way XYZ works, or I'm not getting satisfied out of XYZ. Therefore, there's a solution.
To create that extra value. I guess one last thing I wanted to know also, just like her, I'm working on a pitch for HB that has partnered with UNICEF and the UN to come up with something sustainable for one of the problems and issues that they have. And the topic that they are pushing, the agenda is on education. I created this pitch for a mentorship platform that would pair underserved youth with with college students as mentors because of the extremely high dropout rate that is happening in America, especially in my community. Apparently, in Manhattan, 70% of all the dropouts are in Washington Heights, which is all the way uptown. That's where I live. And just like me, I dropped out of high school and I got my GED, and now I'm in community college. And the platform will really focus on that. Now, I wanted to talk about funding and how the platform will work when it comes to the financial part of it. Yes, I want to create change and serve a community, young people. So there's great purpose there. And to build a platform, only funding for the website itself, to create the program itself, to partner with advisors and things like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like how to make money out of it, if the purpose at the end of the day is to create a platform and take it to countries in Africa where education is lacking and just have mentors for kids that way there, I was thinking having the platform in the US as an actual mentorship platform to be sold to all the corporations and schools and private institutions and even government. The platform works, obviously. But how to present it as a pitch, say it's a for-profit and a non-profit. That there's always people in the room that they're just in it for the money and they want it to be for profit. And there's the people that will be affected. They want it to work, but like, why are you trying to charge? So how do you present a pitch where you need to present the two sides of the coin without losing?
Yeah, wow. Super complex question. Okay, so explain the nonprofit versus for-profit side. Like what? So you're saying the U.S. would be for-profit and the international stuff would be not-for-profit?
Exactly.
Okay.
So create the money here. Start the pilot programs here with community college students, getting high school students to graduate high school and to enter a community college on a entrepreneurship sort of course route curriculum. A lot of them drop out because they just don't feel like there's nothing that they want to stay 6 years doing. They want to start their own business, but entrepreneurship is one of those routes that they can actually take in a community college for 2 years. So that would be one way to just give back to the community, get these kids back in school.
And have you thought through the business model? Have you thought through how you would make money off the platform?
By creating the platform robust enough and changeable enough to be adaptable to a company, to say a university that doesn't have a mentorship lab, or a company that they need to roll out training and they need a program that has conferencing and measurable tools to see goals being accomplished and tasks and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, there's probably a lot more to be unpacked there, and there's just not enough time as far as like scrutinizing the profitability of that business model. And I wouldn't know the answer anyways. But so a couple thoughts as far as the question about the non-for-profit, for-profit thing. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of a B corporation?
Yeah, well, sort of, if you can
Okay, so B Corporation is essentially a for-profit business, but it's socially driven. So it sounds like that's what you should do, right? Like you should. I'd look at comparables on B as in boy corporations. It's a growing organizational strategy. So, and I'm happy to recommend you to some people that are B corporations, and they talk about social entrepreneurship, essentially, is what it is. And so, like social entrepreneurship, the argument behind social entrepreneurship versus social services is that it's much more sustainable, social entrepreneurship, right? Because you are putting the onus on the consumer versus the masses, right? Government and grants and taxes in order to fund the life of these organizations. And so, like, it sounds like you need to look at the B corporation structure, and I think you need to read up a bunch on social entrepreneurship. And if that's truly what you are, and if that's what you are, like, you can have both, in my opinion. And so, like, what I would do is I'd form a for-profit organization. You don't have to worry about B Corp status right now, but like do whatever you need to do in order to get B Corp status so that you can sell both parts. And again, the difference is like literally in the mission of your organization, there is a service-based aspect of it, right? Whereas it's different than for-profit organizations that have what's called a corporate responsibility program, right? Like Walmart, just because people go and, clean up a garden, in their local community, that does not mean that they are socially focused and focused on the welfare of others. Like they're in the business of making as much money possible. And then they put a veil on that, right? B corporations, it's supposed to be different because it's like in their DNA, it's in your mission statement.
Right. That's what we focus on. And you know what? I think that is the key, because I wanted to know how to do that, and I see that churches do the C corporation, and it's like not for profit, but then they're able to sell things and make profit up to a certain cap. And I kept on looking at it from that perspective. I'm like, there's got to be something. There's got to be something better right now that I can actually apply to this model. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really valuable.
Right.
Yeah, I hope it truly was valuable, and it's okay if it wasn't, but I hope.
No, trust me, it definitely was. And if there's a way for either one of us to join, so any of the groups that you put together, whenever you get entrepreneurs together to just kind of like share ideas, just to listen in, I'll be honored to be a part.
So there's a few things. I want to launch a series with Shane. It'll be more just socially focused, of just doing a dinner series for entrepreneurs and just the local community, because what's happened in my city is by doing meals, it's activated like all sorts of business development opportunities. And so it's interesting to see how that happens. So there's that. And then at Novo, which is this company I work for now, we do a breakfast series for entrepreneurs. And so every 2 weeks is a bunch of entrepreneurs get together. Right now it's only 8 to 10. It may grow from there, but would happy to connect you to our business development team. And the goal is just to talk about like a particular topic. And so you'll meet with other entrepreneurs from all over New York City and just talk about a particular topic, how you're dealing with it, best practices, and it's just a great way to meet people from different backgrounds.
That's awesome. Okay. I'll definitely be very interested. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll keep in touch, all right?
Great, guys. Let's keep in touch for sure.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.